Welcome everybody to the Leaders in Housing Counseling call for our first one in September after we had a break for half of August. Hope everybody's doing well. There was a lot going on in our community and in all the things that are happening in Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, and surrounding areas. It's will have a high impact on our work. So we're going to dive right in. We're going to do a federal funding update. We've talked a little bit about the new NHRC members, which is just nice to see many new groups joining. And if we have enough time, I might do a couple of highlights about what we're thinking about for the fall. We're going to devote most of the call to the Credit Builders Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization that's really helping organizations strengthen and individuals strengthen their ability to manage credit and hopefully creates opportunities for all of us. And then the other part of the call will be devoted to the client management systems and our new committee that's formed on the data standardization theme and sort of what the implications are for our work and why we think this might be really helpful to solve some of the problems all of us have been struggling with. We would love your feedback on this and certainly any other CMS-related issues. As usual, use the, okay, I always forget, is it the question box or the chat box?
The question box.
Thank you. Okay, so use the question box to cue Matthew into any questions and we'll have a chance to air many of them. So let's quickly dive in. And so Matthew, where are we at on federal funding?
All right. So we had last night the House voted on amendments for THUD. Congressman Kildee from Michigan, who's a Democrat from Michigan, had offered an amendment that would have put $10 million back into housing counseling assistance, but was ruled out of order, so that didn't even get to a vote. As something on the side, there was also an amendment. I'm going to blank on who that was from, but it was from Jackie Rosen. It would have put $35 million additional into NeighborWorks, and that did not pass. So kind of the where things stand now are the House funded housing counseling at $50 million and the Senate at $47 million. Folks probably heard yesterday that there was a deal reached by what was kind of noted as Democratic leadership from Congress and the White House that would have done three things. It would provide initial funding for Harvey relief. It would be a continuing resolution to keep the government open until December 15th, and it would raise the debt ceiling until December 15th as well. There's already been quite a lot of pushback from Republicans in Congress, but as far as anything I've heard, the expectation is that will pass through. So that basically bumps it from needing to get things done by September for the debt ceiling, October for funding the government, to the middle of December. So we have about 3 months now to kind of work and see what we can get done for the remainder of the year. It seems like there's kind of three potential outcomes, and I'll kind of take these out of order. One is that, they have so much on their plate, they're not able to get anything moved. So December comes along and they realize they just need to pass a continuing resolution, and possibly they do that just for the remainder of the year to kind of push it off their plate for 2018, more or less, which is obviously an election year. It is possible that in the time that between now and then, that they essentially negotiate between bills that the House has passed and the Senate has passed, come up with an omnibus or a bunch of minibuses packaging different appropriations bills together. In that case, the scenario is we would obviously be needing to push for the House number, which is the higher number, and pushing to try to get that $50 million. That's really largely a behind-the-scenes negotiation, but we do think that, particularly with Congressman Dent's support, that we would be in a fairly strong position to advocate for that higher number from the House bill. The other alternative is that they pass a budget deal that raises the spending caps Right now, the problem is that they have, these spending caps in place that make it very difficult to fund, not just our programs across the board, and not just in THUD and in all the appropriations bills. Certainly, there's some reluctance from conservatives to do that, but the Democrats are going to push for that, and moderate Republicans will push for that. So in that case, the bills that they've passed would be a baseline, but they could start plussing up programs depending on how much additional funding they have. So in that scenario, again, we'd work with Congressman Dent to try to get the funding all the way back up to the $55 million that we were at for FY 2017. So Congress has quite a lot on their plate right now. So now that they've essentially punted this week, I mean, once it becomes official, they probably turn their attention away for a little bit. But we have basically October, November will be the time that we're really working to try to get as much funding as we can.
Great. Thanks, Matthew. So we will monitor this closely throughout the fall. It is really valuable when we pull together both in doing the sign-on letters and doing the calls to offices. But the meeting we did in D.C. a few weeks ago with Charlie Dent and with Senator Menendez, those kind of strengthen those relationships as well. So really good that we had such a strong turnout for participation in the leaders' meetings and helpful to all of this. So I'm going to move quickly on just to give a quick recognition and shout out to all the new groups that have joined NHRC. We really appreciate this. So this is the new members. Almost all of these came in just this year. And we have, really appreciate the fact that groups are joining, and we're into year 5 and we're still growing. So that's highly appreciated by all of you. The funny little story is that when we did the announcement about the batiks, and you could get some of the batik banners that we had made for the conference, that members could get them. We ended up with several groups thinking that they were members and they weren't, and they quickly joined. So that was really nice too, and we appreciate it. And a couple people have sent me photographs of where their batik is hanging in their office, and you'll make me happy if you send it as well. That's just another nice thing on that. What we expect for the fall is we're going to continue to do work on trying to create more homeownership opportunities and really try to grow that part of our work and try to develop more fee-for-service opportunities for our organizations, so that's a major piece of the work. We think that on the fee-for-service that there's a real opportunity at FHA. A critical piece is to get the right people into senior management at FHA and at HUD, and that's an area that we can't move on it until those people are in place. And actually, Matthew, did Pam Patternod get voted on? I forgot what we said here.
As far as I know, she is not.
Okay, so Pam Patternod has been voted out of the committee, and we think, but not onto the floor yet. But she's somebody that we think will be very sympathetic and helpful to all this. And we're hoping that Brian Montgomery will be the FHA commissioner, and we think that's another place where we'll be able to get some serious traction. We're going to do a fair amount of work on outreach, and we will. We're involved in an opportunity where we're going to be able to help sponsor with lots of local groups 3 large events this year in major cities. Chicago will be our first kickoff, and I'm hoping that we'll learn from what the groups are already doing and maybe develop some new technologies about how to make these events work and bring in lots of underserved borrowers, and we can share what we learn from all this. We'll also continue doing the Realtor MBA meetings in various cities around the country. Looks like the Realtors will sponsor a couple, and we've got the MBA sponsoring one. We'll continue doing work on delinquency and default and try to really work hard on trying to develop a better, more sustainable funding model around this. We think we have some opportunities with Fannie and Freddie, though their delinquencies are way down. That's generally a good thing, but not for the delinquency and default business. But we think that there might be some way to help to develop business around people who are not delinquent yet, but could be at risk, and trying to get Fannie and Freddie to pay for it as an opportunity. The real action is at FHA, and again, we can't move forward until the FHA players are there, but we think that that could be quite a viable conversation once they're in place. We'll obviously work on federal funding. We're going to continue our work on new lines of business that counseling agencies can use to develop their sustainability. We'll do some work on the client management systems, which we'll hear about shortly, and hurricane relief will be an area that we'll see if there's some useful things we can do in that area. I was involved a lot in the Katrina work, and so interested in this, but do want to figure out if there are ways that we can contribute. Certainly, if you are working in an area that's impacted and you have some ideas about what useful role we can play, I'd love to hear from you. It could be either on the policy side nationally, or on the or more practically on a skill set or resource kind of questions as well. There are a number of kind of loose ad hoc committees that are forming in sort of the DC world and advocacy world to try to be helpful on this, and we're part of that. But I think for us, the most valuable thing would be having a relationship with people on the ground and the work that they're doing and seeing what's needed. So with that 90-yard dash, let's move on to the Credit Builders Alliance, which has been around for a while and has been doing very good work, but it's a resource that for the housing counseling community, this could be, if you're not using them already, hopefully there'll be opportunities where they can help strengthen your work as well. So we have Carmina Lass, who's the Director of Training and Consulting at CBA. Carmina?
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today on this presentation. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So I am Carmina Lass. I am the Director of Training and Consulting with Credit Builders Alliance. And you can move on to the next slide. So today I was just going to give you a little bit of an overview of who we are and what we do and how we might be able to support you in your work. And you can just go ahead and move through the animations. That would be great. Thank you. So Credit Builders Alliance, we are actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. We were formed 10 years ago by a small group of small lenders, primarily making small business loans. And those lenders were supporting entrepreneurs and providing them the loans that they needed and the additional technical assistance that they needed, but they were frustrated in that they were not large enough to be able to report their loans to the major credit bureaus to help their borrowers establish and build a strong credit history. So they came together to essentially form CBA. CBA has relationships with all three of the major credit bureaus, and we see ourselves really as a bridge between the credit bureaus and small and large now nonprofit lenders and also financial capability organizations. Our mission is to help move people from poverty to prosperity through credit building, and we really see good credit as an asset that's fundamental and foundational to helping people achieve other types of asset building goals. So again, we support primarily mission-driven nonprofit organizations, but also other entities, including municipalities and other governmental agencies, through core services that provide them access to the credit bureaus to be able to report loans, but also we've expanded our services that I'll tell you about in a moment, but ultimately to help people build credit as that foundational asset. So we have about approaching 500 members across the country. We are based in Washington, D.C., but our membership is all over the country, and it includes many community development financial institutions, other nonprofit lenders, but also a wide variety of other organizations that are involved in financial counseling, financial capability work, and it includes Habitat for Humanity affiliates, Goodwill affiliates, NeighborWorks organizations, community action programs, refugee resettlement agencies, workforce development programs, and many, many more. So we are happy to have such a diverse group of people all trying to help their clientele really build strong credit to improve their asset building potential. Okay, the next slide, please. So when we were founded, our first service was CBA Reporter. Again, that was primarily serving nonprofit lenders and providing them the access to report their loans to the credit bureaus. So we act as an intermediary to be able to help those lenders that have smaller portfolios that don't meet the credit bureau thresholds to be able to get set up and credentialed to report to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Since we started, we've vastly expanded our services beyond just that reporter service. So we now also offer CBA Access, which I know for many of you on the line as housing counselors, you already are probably pulling tri-merge credit reports, but our Access service is used by many nonprofit organizations who use it to be able to pull soft pull credit reports from 2 of the 3 bureaus for the purposes of loan underwriting, but also for the purposes of financial coaching and counseling. In addition to Reporter and Access, we offer consulting services around credit building program and product design. We also offer consulting services around rent reporting for credit building. So this involves working with affordable housing providers and property managers who need help in understanding what rent reporting is and how to report tenant rental payments and build a credit building program for their tenants to be able to help them leverage positive rental payments for credit building success. In addition to those services, we also have our Credit as an Asset training services through our newly launched Training Institute, and that's what I'm going to primarily focus on for you today. Okay, next slide, please. So we always like to start out any presentation that we do by just giving you a quick overview of what we mean when we talk about credit building. With credit, there's a lot of different things that might come to mind when we think about credit. It's often conflated with debt, and we often go directly to thinking about debt management. And while debt management, credit remediation is absolutely crucial for many people who are overburdened by debt and struggling with collections and public records items, and that remediation is crucial for their financial stability. Our role and our focus at Credit Builders Alliance is really credit building, which is connecting people to affordable, responsible financial products that help them establish and build a positive credit history. So credit building for us is the act of making on-time regular payments on a financial product, such as an installment loan or a credit card that's reported to the creditor by the creditor to at least one of the major credit bureaus. And that's now expanded to other alternative credit building opportunities such as rent reporting. But it's really our focus is, while we can't ignore the debt side of the balance sheet, and it's definitely imperative to the work that you all do. I know our role and our information that we disseminate is really focused on that credit building piece and that access to financial products piece. So we just like to make it clear that that credit building is not credit repair, it's not credit remediation or debt management alone, and it's also not credit education alone, though it may involve all of those things. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, so our training services and our overall program development services are really guided by our what we call our credit strength framework, and that's the idea that when people are trying to build and establish a positive, strong credit history, they need these 3 essential elements to help them be successful and build that credit score that they need in order to achieve their goals, whether it's home ownership or just improving their financial stability and reducing their monthly debt payments, let's say. But what's crucial, of course, as you all know, is knowledge, understanding what you need to know, how to access your credit report, how to impact your credit positively. And then access, of course, is another crucial piece. So what products and opportunities do you need to have in place to build strong credit? Many of our members are really on the cutting edge of developing innovative credit building products, credit builder loans, innovative secured products that combine match savings components, also special purpose loans. So things like loans for assistive technology or loans for survivors of domestic violence to help them achieve financial stability while after leaving a abusive situation. So we work with our members to help them develop those products. We also work with our non-lender members to help them find products in their communities to connect their clients to. And finally, the other crucial element we believe is actions. So supporting our clientele in being successful and supporting ongoing positive credit behavior. So next slide, please. Excuse me. So this year, CBA launched our Credit Builders Alliance Training Institute, and it's designed to be an online platform to really support our members in credit building. So we include, we have a comprehensive learning library that's accessible to our members, and in that learning library, we provide a lot of different resources that through which we disseminate information from our industry contacts, from the credit bureaus, to provide great, relevant, actionable information for financial coaches and counselors for their members. An example is, in light of all of the the natural disasters that we are currently facing in our country, we have disseminated different resources to our lender members about how to report loans for borrowers who have been impacted by these disasters, but also for coaches to provide them with actionable steps to help their clients be proactive in managing their credit even under these difficult circumstances. We also are developing an e-learning platform which involves our Credit as an Asset core training program that I'll give you an overview of, as well as a trainer certification program. We do have a interactive credit strength roadmap coaching tool, which is a decision tree tool to help people identify credit building opportunities. And then we have a members corner, which is primarily a technical assistance resource page for our members that are utilizing our Reporter, Business Reporter, and Access services. And finally, our training institute includes that customized credit building consulting that we offer. All right, next slide. So our training services, our Credit as an Asset training service is really the hub for all of our training institute services. It's our core training. We've been providing this training across the country for the last 8 or 9 years, and we typically provide it as a one-day in-person interactive training, but it really does serve as the framework for a lot of our other training and consulting services. And the goal of our training is to help financial coaches and counselors really understand the concept of credit as an asset, and how to shift the paradigm for clients from credit as a deficit or credit as a barrier to seeing credit as something that can be positive and that can help them achieve their goals. We also provide an overview of the key industry, foundational knowledge that people need to understand how the credit industry works. So understanding scoring models, understanding what's new in credit scoring, and how those different models are impacted by consumer behaviors. In the Get the Good Stuff Going, we focus on products. So we really focus on how to identify good credit building products in your community. We do, of course, address dealing with debt, but it's really dealing with debt from a credit building perspective. So how do you make decisions and take steps to address debt issues with a focus on building strong credit for asset building. And then finally, we do also cover outcome tracking around credit and credit building, knowing that while credit scores are a key metric of success, there's lots of other components to having strong credit than just beyond that credit score. All right, so next slide, please. So this just gives you a little bit of an idea of what you might find on our training institute. So I was going to just give you a little bit more information about our Credit as an Asset e-learning courses, which takes that Credit as an Asset training that I just described, and it's going to be available later this month online. Next slide, please. So it is it's an 8 to 10 hour course that is self-paced. You can do it on your own time, and our training is always very responsive to industry changes as they are always coming online. So we're always enhancing and supplementing and providing additional support to help people digest those changes and what the positive impacts are for consumers, and also the unintended consequences or the potential pitfalls. Next slide, please. So the online training is organized into our 6 modules, which follow our credit strength roadmap and really just provide a comprehensive action plan framework for working with clients. Next slide. So this is just a little bit about the fee structure for our e-learning course. It's $225 for that course for non-members, but CBA membership offers a discount for that course, and CBA membership is available to any nonprofit or governmental agency that goes through our membership application, and membership costs about $300 per year. And then there's also bulk discounts available for those courses as well. And then we'll be supplementing our e-learning library starting in 2018 with additional shorter courses that cover other supplementary and complementary topics to our standard Credit as an Asset training. And next slide. We also do our standard Credit as an Asset training all over the country. And if you go on our website, I can make sure that you get the address for the website. Following the call, you can view the upcoming trainings that we have coming up. We have a number of them that are free Credit as an Asset trainings, as well as some rent reporting convenings coming up in various places across the country and those are sponsored by one of our funders, so you can look and see if there's any in your area. But we also provide monthly webinars to our membership. Most of them are members only, but they are focused on, sharing knowledge, updates in the industry. We just had our most recent webinar was about the new VantageScore 4.0 that's coming online. But also, we like to highlight some of our members and the innovative work that they're doing as well. And next slide. Our Credit Builders Toolkit provides access to our Credit Strength Roadmap, which again, that is an interactive coaching tool designed to help you work one-on-one with clients to decide what kind of credit building products they might be ready for. We have that learning library that I described, Hot Topics blog, more industry updates, and then also our credit building program and product design services. Next slide. So this is just, you can just see what our Credit Strength Roadmap tool looks like, and we've just launched this. So if you're a member, I know that I saw in your list of new members there's a couple I recognize. So if you're a member and you haven't checked this out yet, check it out and let us know what you think. We're going to continue to work on enhancing that for the maximum impact for our members. And next slide. And this just gives you a little bit more information about the credit building consulting services that we provide. In particular, rent reporting for credit building is one of our core consulting services. Like I said, we consult with affordable housing networks, but also individual property management companies and affordable housing providers, owners and operators, to help them explore through an organizational assessment what is involved in reporting their residents' rental payments and how to build a program around that to really support resident success. A lot of the affordable housing providers that come into our rent reporting services are really interested in helping their client, they're in a home ownership, track, and they want to help their residents really build that positive credit through those on-time rental payments to lead towards their eventual home ownership goals. And next slide, please. So this is just a little bit more about access to our training institute. So most of the features are accessible to members only. The full learning library is accessible to members as well as the Credit Strength Roadmap tool. CBA members get discounted rates on the training and consulting services, on the e-learning courses, and on the trainer certification program. And then for non-member organizations and individuals, they can access training and consulting services, e-learning classes, and trainer certification programs for a fee. Okay, next slide. So that's just an overview of CBA and our training institute, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
There are none in the queue. Is the website just creditbuildersalliance.org?
So that's our main website, but our new Training Institute website is cbatraininginstitute.org.
Okay, so I will just put that in the chat box so folks should have a live link to it. And if folks have questions, what is the cost for a housing counseling agency? Could you just run through the fee structure again, please?
Sure. So CBA membership, if you're a nonprofit organization, CBA membership is $315 per year, and that grants you access to the Training Institute website and all the resources that are there. And then the CBA membership will also provide discounted rates for our training and consulting services, as well as to the e-learning courses that I described. But non-members can still access those as well for a fee.
Great. And I'm sorry, the website, cbatraininginstitute.org?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. And then someone else asked if at the end of the trainings, if there's any kind of certification provided?
Yes, so we provide a certificate for the credit as an asset training for both the in-person training that we do and also the online training that we do. And then I briefly had mentioned that we have a trainer certification program, which is a train the trainer model that we will be launching next year. And that would be a more extensive program to certify trainers to be able to license our curriculum and provide the credit as an asset training locally. So if you're interested in any of that, you can contact us at programs@creditbuildersalliance.org, and also you can you can just reach out and we'll put you on our list to get updates as soon as they're available about the training services and also about the trainer certification program.
Great. And just one last question. Somebody asked if you can get continuing education hours for any of the trainings.
So we don't have, in terms of, we haven't set anything up officially on our end yet with any organizations that are, that would be able. We're not credentialed yet with any entity, but that's kind of our next step now that we have our training institute up and running. So if you're interested in utilizing the training services and getting continuing education, definitely contact us and we can. We're working on building that out with different networks that provide CEUs.
Great. Those are all the questions. Good.
Great. Well, thank you for having me.
Sure, and we, in the announcement of the call, we did circulate the list of the events that you told us about this fall that you're doing that are free. They're, I guess, day-long credit as an asset workshops. So hopefully some people have chosen to sign up for those. And if you can give us like on a quarterly basis or something what's coming up, we'd be happy to post them on our system.
Sure, happy to do that.
Good. Okay. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the whole discussion around client management systems and our new data standardization committee. So I think I mentioned on the previous call that when we had our leaders in housing counseling meeting in DC, this really came up as a major issue. There were a number of organizations that are putting together client management systems. While there's broad recognition that the client management systems of today are really old technologies and not taking advantage of what's really available and being up to date and making our organizations more efficient and by using the state-of-the-art technologies. The flip side was this idea that maybe there's going to be 3 or 4 new client management systems and how do organizations manage all that. And so we agreed to pull together a a conference call of interested parties and providers. And the result was this data standardization committee. David Young has been his generous self and is the chair of the committee, and they have convened a call, and actually, like I said, 2 calls technically, the first one to really get it going. And we also have Mark Cole with us. You probably know him from Hope Loanport, but also he's done a lot of thinking about what the implications of the new technologies are for client management systems and how they might interact. So with that note, so David and Mark, are you both here?
We're here. Good afternoon.
Good. Okay. So David, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. Thank you, Bruce. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Young with Housing Action Illinois. As Bruce mentioned, there were a lot of us that were in Washington in July for the National Housing Resource Meeting. And in that conversation, we did hear from a number of organizations that were considering or in the process of developing a new client management system. And with that happening, it really offered an opportunity to think about what we wanted to see in terms of data across any client management system platform that is developed, so that there would be a standardization of information which can help us in a lot of different fronts. It can help us in terms of the information that we are presenting to funders. It can help us in terms of the impacts and the outcomes, and even research that is being done regarding the efficacy of housing counseling. So Bruce did convene an initial call, and we then had another call in early August 11th, as a matter of fact, where we had a discussion about what kind of things that we wanted to do, what we wanted to look at. I just recently sent out some additional information to the committee, and we'll be pulling everybody back within the next week or so. And really the goal is to look at what standards people believe should be there, investigate all of those, and then make recommendations. And then hopefully, once those recommendations are made, that those will be used by anyone that is in the process of developing a client management system, or even one where there's a client management system that is already developed but could be revised, to make sure that all of those pieces are there. Again, we are not looking to mandate that there be one CMS to rule them all, but that there be whatever CMS works best for an organization, that there's a certain amount of standards in terms of data that is available to everybody, because it's going to help us with reporting, it's going to help us with funding, it's going to help us with showing impacts and outcomes. Now, Mark from Hope Loanport has done a lot of thinking about this, and actually provided a very good memo for those of us that are serving on the standardization committee to think about. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark for a few minutes and just ask him if he's willing to share his thoughts with the larger audience.
Certainly, and thank you, David, and thank you, Bruce and David, for pulling this together and leading this, because I do think it's a really critical initiative for the industry. As Hope Loanport, we found ourselves in this spot before, where we serve as a technology interface between counselors and servicers and investors in the exchange of information. So we're both painfully and intimately aware of all of the system's challenges and limitations, and the importance of getting to something like data standardization across whatever case management systems that you use. Because we believe that it really shouldn't matter which case management system that you choose, because each of them are going to have their own flavor of strengths and weaknesses, depending upon the types of clients that you serve and the types of services that you want to offer to those clients. So we think it's really critical to focus on making certain that the data elements that are in the system are standardized in a way so that they can be exchanged easily and seamlessly with funders, lenders, servicers, investors, other CMS systems that are out there. Because I do think that as we look ahead, there's going to be a proliferation of more case management systems, or simply more automated integration of data between institutional organizations, whether that be a state housing agency, a servicer, a lender, or a funder potentially, with your CMS. And so I think that, you know, one of the challenges right now is the two dominant CMSs that are in this space, HCO and Counselor Max, have either had no work done on them for a long time as CMAX, as HCO has, and Counselor Max has had limited investment, and then it has some system kind of architectural platform issues with it about how it interacts with the rest of the world. And so I think it's natural and appropriate that the market is developing more CMS systems that move toward newer technologies and also move us into new spaces like financial coaching or credit improvement, or other kinds of supportive housing services and other programs and things like that. So that innovation in the marketplace, I think, is really, really good. But we've got to be able to make certain the data is there and it's consistent across the board. And so that, one of the benefits of that is that it allows us to share data with our customers who are financial institutions at times, or funders, or other sorts of things like that. But it also has a secondary value to the industry as a whole, where when all the data is standard, so for example, a credit score is a credit score is a credit score across all those platforms because of how it's defined, or income means the same thing in each one of the CMSs, means a lot, because when we can aggregate that data, then all of a sudden it becomes valuable for us to be used by researchers and regulators and other third parties who potentially are looking at trying to define the value proposition of what we do as a counseling industry. So we're very supportive of it. We've recommended as well that there be a neutral repository for keeping the data standards available to everybody. In the for-profit, in the mortgage world, you have MISMO, which is an industry organization that helps define the standards so that across servicers or across lenders, they use the data field is the same data field in all those places. And we need something very similar like that for us in this space as we move forward. So once again, we're very supportive of it. We think it's a really logical step for us as the sector begins to embrace technology more. It'll make us more efficient and more productive and more effective. And then we can use APIs, or application programming interfaces, to simply exchange data automatically. That's the kind of stuff that should happen behind the scenes, so that you as a counselor, you as a leader of a counseling agency, don't have to be as technologically proficient in those things, but rather that there's a network of people behind you in the technology world that are providing those services in a way that makes your job simpler and easier and better and faster.
I mean, and that's exactly the kind of the goal of this committee that we're working on. And the nice thing is that in the meetings, the organizations have brought in their technology specialists into the conversation as well, and they talk a different language than I talk, but they are clearly in their element and are thinking about how this all might work smoothly together. So it creates an opportunity for us as a community. The other piece to this, I think, hitting on all the right points about client data and the ability to have a large data pool and researchers and regulators to do the value proposition. The other one of standardized data would be that it'll be easier to interact with lenders and servicers, and allow, with the proper authorizations, transfer of information. And if we can do that consistently, then it becomes easier for organizations that are using these systems to refer people to a lender, refer people to a servicer, and hopefully in some circumstances vice versa, so that all of these planes will be valuable in our work. And lenders have already kind of expressed a concern about with multiple client management systems. Does that mean that they'll have to develop a pipeline for each one with its own data fields? And this kind of addresses that. Do we have questions lined up for anybody?
Yeah, we got a couple of comments kind of on the existing systems on HCO and Counselor Max, but nothing really on the data standardization.
I think we're all painfully aware that Counselor Max and HCO are ancient systems in today's technology world, and their providers are aware of it as well, and are part of the and NeighborWorks is definitely part of the conversation in this committee. We haven't brought Fannie in on it, but there'll be a time when they'll be part of that conversation as well.
Just one of the comments was from a NeighborWorks person who was just pointing out that Counselor Max is updated annually and is current with all industry standards at this time.
Okay. So, David, you have some more thoughts on this?
Well, we are going to be moving pretty aggressively to get standards in place. And Mark, like Mark said, I think it is a good idea to not only figure out what those standards are, but where those standards are going to be held, so that anyone that is looking to develop a client management system will have access to that. And I hope that the individuals that are participating in this call, even if you are not participating on the committee, if you do have some ideas or you have some suggestions, please reach out to me with those. My email address is David, D-A-V-I-D, @housingactionil.org. That's David at housingactionil.org, and maybe Matthew will be kind enough to send that out to everyone later today. But we would like to get input from other people that are not participating in the committee, because your perspective might be something that we're not thinking of, and it could be very valuable. So I hope that if you have a thought, that you will contribute.
Or volunteer your technology person if you think there'd be value in that as well. So, Matthew, we've got something.
Yeah, well, so just someone asked a question that I think kind of would be helpful to address, just kind of very big picture. So they asked if there's a fee for the new system, will it be a HUD system or Fannie Mae? So could you just kind of very big picture clarify what you all are working on?
So what we're working on is not the actual architecture of the individual system. As Mark said, I think that there are going to be a couple of different systems that will be available. And some might be built on the Salesforce platform, some might be built on some other platform, but there are going to be a number of different systems. If you look right now at all of the ARM5 compliant systems that HUD has, I believe that there are 42 of them.
Right.
The majority of those are proprietary, so maybe one organization or maybe an intermediary has developed it and it's being used exclusively by its intermediary affiliates. And there are about, of those 42, about 20 that are publicly available. So if you wanted to use it like HCO or Counselor Max, you could do that. So the expectation is that there are going to be some systems like HCO that might disappear in the near future. And there are other systems that are going to come to take their place. And so no matter how those systems are designed, whether it's built on one platform or it's built on another platform, we want to make sure that all of the client management systems are capturing same data across each of the platforms, which will help us in our conversations with HUD. It will help us in our conversations with other funders. It will help us in conversations with researchers as we are looking to show the efficacy of our work. It will help us internally as we are looking at what we are doing in our communities and how we can better serve our communities. And so that's really the goal here is, you know, if any one of you decided, hey, you know, we'd like to create a client management system, then we would have the ability of saying, if you're going to create a client management system, you need to make sure that these data standards are included in your product.
And David, I think you hit the nail on the head right there, is that what we're trying to do is create essentially a library of standards out there that anybody can go and work towards. And I'll give you a very practical example. So this last week, we've been updating Hope Loanport and our Homeowner Connect platform as well to be able to accept information from case management systems so that consumers can actually go in and register if they've been impacted by Harvey. It's a disaster. It's a new kind of disaster assistance case type. So, you know, we know in the past, for example, that some of the data fields that we're asking for, some of the CMS systems don't track or keep the same way. So there's no way that you could sit in your case management system across all of those 42 case management systems that exist out there. And instead of just exporting the work that you've already done into Hope Loanport, where it can then get submitted to one of the 25 different servicers that we're working with on this, you have to actually go over and then manually type it in, because your CMS provider isn't using the same set of protocols that a servicer is using there. So we think it's critical to get those definitions where they're the same, so that as you're working with somebody, then all of a sudden all you have to do is have your CMS provider make certain that they export those data fields in a way that's consistent, so you never have to do that double entry work again. And so that's the kind of really kind of the kind of theoretical stuff is nice out there, research and all that sort of stuff, but on a day-to-day basis, practically being able to push that and avoid double keying and getting the information directly in the hands of decision makers very quickly is something that we've got a lot of work to do as this sector, because right now there's too many different ways that it gets done, and it forces counselors to have to go in and double or triple key stuff at different times.
Great. Just one last quick question is if you all have a time frame for when you might have a product, a finished product.
I think the short answer is no. I think we're right at the beginning stage. I think the piece of good news is that it seems like some of this work has already been done, that that MISMO and HUD have already, and maybe Freddie, I'm not sure,
right,
that some parties have started doing these definitions, and part of the challenge is to figure out what's missing, and part of the challenge is to figure out what we can embrace and use consistently.
Yeah, there'll be two steps to this. So step number one is everybody agreeing on them, and Bruce is right. We worked last year with Freddie and HUD on a data standardization process as well for some of this, and so a lot of this is already in process to push this toward MISMO, so that the financial institutions understand what kind of data can potentially come from counseling organizations and be able to accept that as well. So step one is getting the definitions done and standardized and agreed upon. And then step two is each of the CMS providers have to decide if they're going to update their systems to reflect that. And so those are individual choices that they will make about whether or not they want to actually spend the time and effort of updating their programs to do that. And then kind of step three on that is that once they start making changes, anybody who's working in operations on a day-to-day basis knows when you start changing fields, and if you're used to putting information in the same way over the last 6 or 7 or 10 years, and it starts changing, then you have to rethink it. So there'll be a training and adoption element that'll be there for the counseling organization. So this isn't this isn't a quick process, but I think there are elements of it that will move forward very quickly.
I know for HCO, Fannie has been telling us repeatedly that they are committed to not just stopping it, but in fact having a transition that will help export your existing files into the new system and not let it happen as a cliff falling off the edge.
Let me just say, as somebody who's done conversions out of HCO, there's a lot of stuff that's hard to convert out of there and put into more updated standard architectures or technology now. So that's their problem is that you can move somebody, but you can't always migrate all of the data out of there because it doesn't match up.
Hence the problem. Okay, well, more on this, and I think on the questions of and just so that people understand why there are several different systems out there, some of them reflect organizational needs. So if you're a large organization dealing with multiple call centers, you have a set of technology needs to communicate with the call centers. If you are a community development network that has many streams of business, not just housing counseling, and the idea is that you want to create a common database, and that's why Salesforce is appealing. Then people use that model. And I mean, the idea behind the models are really that they reflect some of the organizational needs, and they're the train is a little bit out of the station on this idea that it's too late to think that there'll only be one CMS, but this whole effort is to try to make it so that information can move easily between the programs and to our partners when it's authorized and needed. Oh, and the question of cost, there will be some cost because there's no, somehow the bill has to get paid for these, and we'll certainly encourage partners to subsidize. And there's a lot of subsidization that's already going on. I know that Citibank and a number of the lenders have contributed towards some of these efforts. But it's the realistic part of the world is that you still have to figure out how to pay the bills on a system that comes in. Obviously, we'll try to encourage that it be as the least burdensome possible, but there's no way of getting away from the idea that somebody's got to pay the bill. Good. Have we got anything else in the queue? No. Okay. Well, excellent. Thank you, everybody. This is, I think, an encouraging piece on moving forward in technology. We tried to get a technology conversation going several years ago that really didn't go anywhere. This is much more practical, and I think will be helpful in the field. If you'd like to have input in this, please reach out to David. And there's always a possibility of joining the committee if you've got resource people who have the time and experience on it. So we will, let's quick reminder about joining NHRC. I mean, it's been a very good year for us for new members, but we will welcome more of you in, and glad to have you. And we have a few more boutiques, not very many, but we have a few more boutiques left if that helps anybody make their decision. But obviously we're doing lots of advocacy work. Would love to have you in the fold as well. Our next call will be in 2 weeks. I'm very interested in, so we don't have an agenda for the call yet, but if there are people in hurricane impacted areas, please reach out to me. I'm interested in seeing if there's things we can do that would be helpful in these calls, or in some other forum, or if there are policy issues we can work on. Certainly, we're going to revive the conversation about the new lines of business that housing counseling agencies can be looking at. So if you've got a hot entrepreneurial something that you're doing that you think is replicable by others, please shoot me an email. These are a lot of fun, and you get a lot of recognition from it. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I do is when we circulate when we have a program like that, as we did last year, we do circulate this to funders and regulators and government people, policymakers, so that your organization will get some visibility out of it, not just in our world, but in the outside world as well. So with that note, look to talk to you in 2 weeks, and keep up the great work you're doing. Thanks. Bye.